Hi, and welcome to the brand new Tuned Up audio interview series. For our first installment, we have a very special guest, the experimental instrumental project YNICORNS, based out of Pensacola, Florida. We talk about the history of the band, it moving from a solo act into a full band, new music, stylistic influences, the local scene, and so much more. So stay tuned and check it out.
Everybody just introduce yourselves, what you play. That way people can actually put voices with names.
Sure. I'm Doug, and I play guitar.
I'm Destin. I also play the guitar.
Same guitar.
At the same time, yeah. It's unique.
I'm Nick. I play synth, samples, other soundtracky nonsense.
I'm Alex, and I play the drums.
Awesome.
Sean is not with us, but he plays bass.
Yeah, Sean plays the bass.
Does he?
He does. Quite well.
It's otherworldly. I don't know.
Well, Doug, you were talking about at the start how this started out as a solo project. Now it's moving toward more of a band, more of a full-on collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
So just give me a little bit of history and then how everybody met each other.
Sure. So I started this as a solo thing in 2013-ish, 2012, 2013, in Virginia when I lived there. And I wanted to I had been recording a lot of local to regional bands just for a music show I was doing. And there was a band called Brother Wolf from Richmond, Virginia that I was really inspired by, just like their approach to restraint in songwriting. And I'd always listened to post-rock music, specifically a lot of like Do Make Say Think and Godspeed You Black Emperor. And I got a loop pedal for Christmas one year, and I used that as like the final catalyst to start writing music again after a really long time. So I wrote a bunch of songs that eventually went on to Before We Knew Love and Loss, which was an EP. Started getting opportunities to play live, so I figured out how to write some songs that were just loop pedals and not stuff that lived in Pro Tools. And I did that for a long time to extremely small crowds, and trying to... I've listened to a ton of electronic music throughout my life, so I really had a lot of like glitchy IDM sort of infused beats and other things involved with it, which still are thankfully a part of a lot of what we do. But after moving to Florida in 2016, I had taken some time off. I'd had kids. My life was going through a lot of changes. And eventually, I started picking up music again over the pandemic more seriously. I'd gotten signed to this label called Post Records. I put out previous records on Flag Day Recordings, which was run by a friend of mine in Virginia who was super kind and really supportive of what I was doing. Then with Post Recordings, I put out this weird, super harsh, dark ambient album that was all improv. And then after that, I realized I hated playing that live because it was all improv and the songs weren't. I didn't know how to play them. I didn't want to figure them out.
Sure.
And a friend of ours in this band Noiseheads was playing vinyl music hall here in Pensacola and asked me to open. And there was no way in hell I wanted to get up there and do that by myself and try and play anything from that last record or anything else or improv. It seemed like a nightmare. That was too big of a stage to do that on. So Destin and I have worked together for a long time. We're both in the production industry. So we had taken a trip a long time ago to Atlanta to film for a week, and he brought a guitar. And I was like, I didn't even know you played guitar, and you play remarkably well for someone who's so quiet about it. So I asked Destin if he was interested in playing guitar. I thought he would say no because shows are late, and at the time I think you went to bed at like 9 p.m. most nights.
I still do.
Okay. And Nick, when I first moved to town, I, for some reason, decided I wanted to start going to a barber. I'd never done that before, and Nick was the recommendation I got. So I think the very first haircut that I had with you, we barely spoke through it because I think we're both naturally kind of quieter people.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And then the second time, I think you mentioned going to see Sigur Rós. Recently, I was like, oh, what? So that triggered a lot of conversation about
that or one of my we've played together prior to being in the project.
Yeah, but I think that was after.
Was that?
That was because you told me about being in Blight after we broke the ice on both being into weird post-rock bands.
Yeah, it's probably after Sigur Rós mentioned.
Yeah, so we started talking about Sigur Rós and Russian Circles and a bunch of other bands every time I'd go and get a haircut. And then, eventually I started doing solo performances at Chizuko, and Nick's band at the time, Blight, was on some of the same bills, or I would come out and see you guys. And so we just got to know each other that way. And I think, for years, we would at least once a year maybe, reference, in a tagged post on Facebook or Instagram or something like, when are we starting a band?
Yeah. We'd always put each other on one another's shows, too. So
yeah.
Whether any project I was in was on a Unicorn show or anything I was playing on, a band that I was in would play, we'd always try to have Doug play with us.
Which I deeply appreciate.
And that's
because that's right. You guys had Nick was in Faux Fox, and Faux Fox did the Summer Bummer shows, and you guys had me open that up. That was in the harsh dark ambient era, which
it's right up our alley.
Anyways, it was again. I was never on a bill that made any sense when I was solo because they're just what do I care about that? Who does care about that? Listening to an interview with has anyone ever watched Let's Talk About Math Rock on YouTube?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was listening to an interview with him and Marcus Manna of Standards, and he was talking about how he composes stuff in Guitar Pro, which is this tab software that I've never, used. I certainly don't own. But that started to make sense to me about how Standards music sounds, because it's so highly constructed, and there'll be minor variations upon a theme in a row, and there's no repetition per se, but it's very subtle variation sometimes. And thinking about composing music in that way is really interesting. It doesn't work for me because I don't know enough about music to write music that way. I fumble around in Pro Tools until something works, and then start to do a mix of a lot of arrangement stuff. So playing with very few notes in annoyingly somewhat challenging ways to play.
Sure.
When we first started playing as a full band, I handed out, as Destin was referring to, a collection of spreadsheets that had a notation system that was probably needlessly reconstructed versus just giving tabs out.
Okay.
But there are so few notes in our songs that it didn't really make sense to write full tabs for it. It made more sense to like have a thing where you could like look at different cells and see like, well, this cell repeats like X times and then it changes and it does that X times, you know? So I realized very early on when we started actually trying to play these songs that I had written before thinking that this would be a full band thing, and discovered we had made music that sounds really pretty easy but is annoyingly difficult to play at times because there's a lot of counting and like intentionally like out of phase sort of like arrangement parts that repeat over each other.
I will say for me that like I think everything got, like, at least as far as my participation is concerned, everything got better when I stopped reading the tabs.
that tracks.
Once
Yeah.
I stop playing my actual instrument and move the synth, and I can do whatever I want. It's much easier now.
Slowly, I'm driving people away from the songs. Alex, you've been killer, just like nailing the recording.
No, I
but
mean,
you're also like taking the songs that were super boring and making them way better now.
I was just, I'm gonna be real, like, you know, it was really funny. So I want to say, like, you approached me about, was it 2 months or like a month and a half before like we were getting ready to play?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I just remember like it was fun. It was really fun to tackle because, like, you know, I had already actively listened to their music before when I caught them live and everything. I want to say it was at your first headliner at the Handlebar with the Listener.
Right.
Also a great band in the area too. So, you know, it was really cool to, like, you know, listen to that and then seeing how it was all constructed and all that. It kind of forced me to play through a flow of, you know, measures through that, like he said and everything. It's, you know, repeating in a odd way, but there is a really cool pattern to it, and it's definitely like challenged me to become a better musician and not just a drummer for it too. Okay. And I really appreciate the, you know, that I've been able to play in that, and it's been receptive so far. So it's been an awesome thing so far.
yeah,
I love it.
Certainly got used to playing things wrong, like, and I mean that in the best way. Like, yeah. Because otherwise I came from, and I've been very candid with, I've not played that much music, and most of what I know is in very typical 4/4. Like, it's really simple stuff, pretty traditional chord structures, and then now, like, doing this, like, I've always liked to improv to some degree, whether it's on the piano or the guitar, but I'll play like in this space more where I'm like intentionally doing something wrong. And so I think in a lot of ways, like, once the song, my sentiment about like stop paying attention to the tabs, like the tabs informed the new improv, like, which is not really, I mean, it's probably not by technical definition, which we're not doing those here, but improv, but it's, if I just feel it out, like I find, I think, the energy that the song intended to have in my own way, and it just feels better every time, and I think it's interpreted better. I think Sean like illustrated that at his onset. I mean, immediately was like doing his own thing, and it was like, oh, this is fun. Like, you're not just interjecting something new, but like working outside of that confines. And I think with the synths too, like, and I feel like that is, if there's anything improv about the show, it's that. Like, there are moments where I'm like, ooh, what is that? Like, you know, it's just very different.
It gives different textures and everything to play around with too, and, you know, it adds another layer to the sound.
It's been interesting with Nick's moving to synth, especially after the last show we played, because that was the first one where I feel like you had time to really like spend a lot of time with the songs, especially since moving to the mini log that you're on now. And there are clips from, I can't remember which song, but where it has like a wildly different vibe than I'm used to it having, but I really liked it. And that's, it's been fun because that's like the most blank canvas of all, is there has never been synth parts. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this, like, people have asked me in the past historically about like like what the synth is doing or what synth is on this. And I'm like, there are no synths on these songs. There is
Because
zero.
it's like music that's like supposed to have synths on it, right?
Apparently, that's what apparently what it's supposed to have, and now we do. But I guess we finally got with the program.
I always like to
But
call that stealthing. You know what I mean? Just like, no, it's actually all just guitar effects pedals that
Well,
are just,
there's a lot of times where I'm listening to a song and I can't tell what instrument it is. I'm like, is that a guitar? Is that a trumpet?
Are you talking about in this band?
No, just in general.
Just to know. Okay, I was going
Just
to say,
in
because
general.
there's numerous moments on stage where we are trying to figure out who is making that
We get
noise.
so lost. Who's playing what sound?
Yeah.
Whose
No, I mean,
pedal
it's-
is still on?
Yeah.
One song that does that for me is like it's by Slowdive. It's called Machine Gun.
Okay.
And like just I remember first hearing that too, and I thought it was a synth as well. But then I was like, no, it's just like all these reverb choruses are just stacked on top of each other, and just so many other things on top of it. And it blows me away, like what effects pedals are able to do. I'm just making a string instrument sound like
Oh,
that,
yeah.
honestly.
Or even just things that you can do in the studio. So this shirt that I'm wearing, Hotel Laughing Tree, they put out an album last year, and well, they put out albums before that too, but this was after like 8 years of hiatus. And there's one song where I'm like, wow, the bass part is really cool. And then they did a podcast on every single one of their albums, and it's like 4 hours long. And then I get to the part on that song, and they're like, so we just took the guitar part and we pitch shifted down after it was recorded. I'm like, okay, well, it convinced me.
yeah, I mean that was how we did bass for a long time. Or that's how I did bass before it was a band. We have a pitch shifter pedal.
Okay.
Works, but far better with real bass.
Oh, yeah.
For us.
Sure.
So, and then Alex, we'd started the band. We'd started this full band iteration with Mike McDonald, who's in Faux Fox, who left about a year ago at this point. 6 months to a year ago, somewhere in at that point, to pursue other projects. And Alex had seen us play at Handlebar, and I think you talked to me at Odd Colony. Mm-hmm. And then we had just talked on Instagram for a while, and I knew Mike was starting to have an interest in pursuing other things. So I was like, how serious are you about learning these songs? So I sent him the spreadsheets, and we had a couple practices, and things have gone great since then. And similarly, Sean, who's on bass, I met him the first week I lived in Pensacola, and yet another person who just was like, it would make a lot of sense for us to play in a project together, but didn't happen for another 7 or 8 years. So yeah, that's how we all sort of wound up in the same place, unless I'm missing anything. Does that sound right?
Well, Alex and Sean were filling in a lot. Mike
Yeah,
and
that's
I
right.
were out for
That's
work
right.
and
'Cause,
stuff.
like Nick is a really famous traveling barber, and so it's this is turning this from a bunch of people who play songs I wrote into a band has been now 2 years sort of like effort that has been very slow moving because we all have kind of demanding careers or schedules or other bands that we're in, and so we don't have regular rehearsals. We have a very complicated scheduling system to figure out what days we're all available on, which is usually like 3, if we're lucky, occasions before a show. Mm-hmm. And we are very specific and intentional about that. Right now, we thankfully have another month or so until our next show, and we're using that to learn a new song for the first time in forever.
Okay.
It hasn't
But
been that long.
say what?
It hasn't been that long.
Since we learned a new song?
Yeah, Sage wasn't that long ago,
We've been
right?
playing Sage for like 6 months, haven't we?
Well,
Maybe more
I
than
think we
that.
played it like
You
twice.
unveiled y'all unveiled Sage like at the Odd Colony show. That was your first time playing it live.
No, we played it live at Easygoing Gallery, didn't we?
oh, we tried.
We
yeah.
tried. It was really not great. But I mean, arguably, we didn't play the version that we play now. But yeah. So so originally it was started as more of a collective because I didn't want anyone to feel beholden to like practices or like feeling like they're holding back a show from getting booked. So, Alex started filling in for Mike whenever Mike wasn't available, and Sean was filling in for Nick when Nick was traveling.
Okay.
But then at the start of this year, I had everyone over for dinner, and I was just like, I want this to be the band. I want all of us to be the band, and we've somehow made it work. And since then, we've actually all been at all of the shows. I say that like there's been more than 2 or 3, but That's pretty good for
And
us.
they've all been fun shows, man.
They have been very fun shows.
Played with a lot of great bands, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane.
So both of you are on guitar. You have extensive pedal boards. You've got your entire synth set up.
And an
With a
extensive
suitcase
pedal board.
and a pedal board.
I've got a pedal board I'm not even using anymore. But I've got a lot of pedals. I got a lot of equipment.
So, not to take you out of the conversation for a second, but I do want to talk about the sound design. What all goes into that. I have a couple pedals. I don't fully know how to do everything with them. Obviously, you guys do. So,
I don't know how much I think about pedals anymore. Honestly, like I spent like 20 years buying and selling pedals.
okay.
And now I just have like a bunch of delays and reverbs more than anything else, and I guess 2 distortion-y pedals and loopers. I mean, there's like a lot, but I don't know. I honestly, I don't really use delay. I mostly just use reverb. I use a lot of looping and micro glitching on a Boss DD6, which is part of Untitled 1 a lot. And also just like between set stuff because it's fun. But I think that more of the there's most of like the ambience of the songs comes from just like a lot of reverb being on stuff and like cascading reverb, and definitely on the records it's like reverbs into reverbs a lot of the time. And beyond that, a lot of the other like weird sounds for me come from Screwdriver and micro glitch stuff, and that's kind of it. I used to be more obsessed with pedals, but I think that I was using that as a way to not write music. So
Sure.
I do that. Destin, you want to talk about your pedal setup?
I don't think my pedal obsession has started yet.
You've been really careful not to get too deep into that.
I play a very basic multi-effect pedal.
Okay.
And like relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things, I think. And yeah, I mean, I think the initial construction of the sounds that I used for Unicorns was trying to sound like the record. I mean, that's what we were like, how can we build these sounds to, which a lot of was done by you in the early stage.
And I mean,
but I've just like tweaked those a little bit here and there, and then like we'll when we're improvising, I'll play with a couple of other things that are just like kind of a lot of weird stuff stacked on top of one another. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say the record is like such a different story too, because the record was recorded entirely direct with amp sims and pedal sims. Like, I think technically
it's more true to form. Because I'm playing all simulated sounds.
Everything. Yeah, I mean, you do play through a very nice tube amp at least, but because I wrote the songs that we have been playing. I wrote here a lot of the times after my kids go to bed, so I'd record the entire thing in headphones. But Nick probably has like the far and away most interesting pedal and soundscape setup of any of us.
Well, oddly enough, when I joined Unicorns, I have probably one of the most extensive pedal board setups, but it was for Faux Fox and Blight, the other bands that I'd been in. And when I came to Unicorns, there was pretty much no effects on the bass. So I was just running straight, just a Sans amp.
It's true. Yeah.
I wasn't using anything
So
for
we're,
bass.
so
But
you were
now-
just playing bass before you were
Originally,
playing
I was
keys?
playing bass
Okay.
before I was playing synth. But on my pedal board, I've got like Faux Fox is really big on like tones and like overdrives and fuzz. So I have a lot of that, which I might have only ever triggered once or twice for unicorn stuff. Rarely, very rarely. But a lot of reverbs, a lot of delays. I've got loopers, but now that I've moved to synths, I've got a microcosm. And that's basically my go-to for all of my sounds
Okay.
on top of my mini log. And there's like 3 settings on that I use. It's Mosaic, which pretty much just does whatever it wants. It like double times and half times, 1 octave and 2 octave up and down all at the same time.
Okay.
So it'll capture certain drones and just kind of run with it. And I basically just take that and run it through my Walrus Audio slow reverb. And I just, Doug's advice for the synth was like, what should I do? He's like, lots of reverb. I was like, all right. So I'll like trigger a note and it just drones forever and just become lush layers of textures. So I'll do a lot of that. I've got a Chase Bliss mood, which I'll try to capture a lot of like loops and drones and kind of build off of that, all while trying to play like the songs. So half the time I'll hold notes and also be slamming pedals to try to make stuff capture for like cool moments. And then I've got a bunch of reverse pedals, delay pedals. I haven't dove too much into it as far as writing with all this stuff because everything that was written, I've kind of just had to figure it out playing synth because there weren't any really
There weren't
written
synth parts.
But now as we kind of move and we're growing, we're writing new stuff, I have a little bit more freedom to kind of create. So I'm going to do a little bit more of that here in the future as we start working on new stuff.
I will say, you like one of the coolest moments was you were able to the drone from Untitled 3 is like this song long drone that I originally played like with a guitar into reverb, into delay, into reverb, into distortion, and reverb in Pro Tools. And you've been able to recreate that sound almost exactly with your setup, which is super cool.
I just hold a C sharp.
Yeah, basically it's like 1 or 2 notes.
No, I play the whole. I basically just
You play all 4 notes.
I transposed my bass line into a synth,
Yeah.
and then just covered it in reverb and whatever effects are going on.
But it's like this, like I think like so much of
It's like
what
a warm blanket.
so much of like the records
man, textures.
was trying to take these very like things that are designed to be clean and like pristine or like really accurate models of things, and then making them not sound like good. Like for instance, the end of Untitled 3 is that piano part, which I played with like the gentleman from Native Instruments or whatever, like virtual instrument, but sounded way too good. So I played it out of my monitor speakers into a Caliphone like school tape cassette recorder.
Okay.
Then I played that back into a microphone from the little like 2-inch speaker that's in this cassette player, and now it sounds like shit. It sounds great. So like that's been kind of like the thing is like, you know, all these beautiful pedals that make this amazing reverb and like these washes of gorgeous sound, like throw that into a distortion and then back into another reverb and then to another distortion. And then you get like this like thing that's so unpredictable in terms of how it's going to distort and when it's going to distort. It's like if Sigur Rós' Tack album has all these interstitial moments between songs where it sounds like the song itself is so frail, it's like crumbling on the record in between stuff. And like his voice is like that falsetto that sort of crumbles too. It's these gorgeous like moments of just like edge of like destruction and fragility that I love, and that's what like a lot of the drone sounds were like inspired by.
Okay. Well, I know that you said you don't like to talk a lot, but what you just said was extremely poetic. I just want you to be aware of that.
Yeah, like, you know, he's just like, it's amazing to just listen to your gear. You know, like, as a drum gearhead, I really appreciate whenever, you know, people talk about, like, just, you know, how they get the sounds in general, because that's always, like, what I really like to know in any record that I listen to. And it's just insane to see how it's replicated live. And like you said, I don't know how, like, Nick finds it, but it's just incredible. It's just added so many tones to, like, the live performance.
Yeah, I think that the transition to add synth and to have you doing it the way you're doing it has absolutely elevated everything that
Especially
that
like Seish.
Yeah.
Like Seish with those synth parts is really
Very cool.
really cool. Like it had.
I'll let you know when I actually figure out what I'm playing.
You know what I mean?
I still don't know what I'm doing.
There's that improv moment we were talking about. You know?
Maybe the whole set's improv. I don't know what's going on. We're working on it.
Well, I like what all three of you said, varying degrees of complexity of what you're doing, and even just what you were saying about the bass originally not having any pedals on it. Because there's a lot of people who go back to what you were saying, they get crazy about pedals, and they're like, I just need one more reverb. I just need a little bit more fuzz. And then I can finally get a good tone, versus I've just got a multi-effects pedal, I got a looper, you can make music with that. Go write songs, you can buy more stuff later and improve the songs that you already have. And I think part of that's also what we're talking about too, is you've got this base of things that you've written over the years, and then everybody coming in and adding the secret sauce.
It's certainly been fun. There was, I like everybody spent a lot of time obsessed with getting texture and tone right, but it was honestly when we were learning the songs for the very first time in the very first iteration of the live lineup. There was a practice where it was just me and our former drummer Mike trying to figure out how to play a song that we played live exactly one half of a time because it fucking fell apart.
Lights?
Yeah, I'm talking about Lights. It was a train wreck from an older album that. It's so weird. I like it a lot on record. I hated it live. It was the most boring thing to play and listen to, and we couldn't even do it right. But I was sitting there trying to learn the song, and Mike started talking about the concept of like a musical idea being like the basis of what we're trying to learn, and like that maybe the performance is bad, but like the musical idea itself isn't bad. And just reframing my thought process around not like how do I get a cool weird sound, or how do I find like a texture that's like fun to play around in, exploring, and let the texture or the pedal drive the decisions or whatever, make it more about like finding musical ideas that actually are something, and starting from there has been super helpful for me in composition, because that became the basis of exploring the way we arrange songs and exploring a lot of like the foundation for composing a lot differently. And I think helpfully, because after that, like, that's when Keeve and Seish got written, was after that conversation, and after like we had started playing live as a group more often.
Post rock is in again. Like,
Post rock is back, baby. It's 1995, and we're as popular as ever.
Slow down. Just play New Orleans.
We're playing to tens.
This is completely tangential. Maybe not completely tangential, but there's like this weird new wave of shoegaze going on right now.
There is the mod. Alex, I'm sure you have even more opinions and thoughts on the modern, the new wave of shoegaze, because like you're I think one of the only people I know who appreciates like My Bloody Valentine in the same way I do, and I think you appreciate so many more bands from the original shoegaze era than I do. But I get so confused when like I feel like the modern interpretation of shoegaze is very different from the classic version.
No, and I think that's incredible though. The way I even met Doug too was like in the other band that I do, which we're actually in the middle of like some big changes. Going to be announcing some pretty soon, actually.
Big things coming.
Yeah, I'm pulling the meme, but yeah, no, it's really kind of cool to see this resurgency and everything, and I think it's cool to see people taking the kind of the philosophies of what those earlier bands like Slow Dive, Lush, My Bloody Valentine, all the big guys, and see like what their interpretations are. I would kind of almost say like there was even kind of a weird revival like in the 2000s for a second with like Asobi Sexu or Ringo Death Star would be one, and
even the 2010s, because you had bands like Whir and Nothing and Deaf Heaven kind of pop.
That's
like
true.
Absolutely,
all that stuff was coming back.
Holy Fawn's another really cool one.
Now,
but it's great though. It shows that no matter what like inspirations people have within those older genres, it's not just an admiration of it, but it's a desire to expand further on that idea and in question what is that, what can it be, and it's some of the local bands here too, man. They are really pushing the boundaries in a big way. Like
No, it's. I mean, thinking through like the eras you guys just talked about, like each one did sort of introduce a like companion genre that sort of got blended in with shoegaze, like with the Deaf Heaven stuff that was like more like a metal / shoegaze.
Now shoegaze also has a
what
lot
Light was for me.
Yeah,
it was Deaf Heaven inspired.
Yeah,
and like shoegaze also, there's like a lot of like Midwest emo inspired chords now popping
up.
And
that's like an interesting, because I was gonna say like, shoegaze, like this current wave of shoegaze, I feel like has like a lot of post hardcore and like. For some reason, nu metal is back. I don't know if how much influence that is having in the shoegaze movement.
We got to bring back space rock. That's what's got to happen.
Classic late '90s space rock.
If you told me that Yellow Card was putting out Ocean Avenue, the album, and that Creed was on tour, and you asked me to guess what year it was, I would not say 2024.
That's right. They did just re-put out Ocean Avenue, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, that was the
Incubus just put out a new live album of like a redo.
A redo of Morning View.
Yeah.
Isn't Creed like hot right now?
Creed is hot again.
Yeah.
So is Limp Bizkit.
Yeah, they just had their moment. Limp Bizkit just had their moment.
Yeah. I had to fucking live through this, guys.
Wow. Same.
I'm older than. Well,
in high school.
You're like, what year is it? I think it's funny how I ended up in a post-rock band because I used to live in Maryland and played a lot of music up there, and it was very, very much the opposite scene of playing in a shoegaze band, post-punk inspired stuff, and post-rock. Like
it was cool up there too.
Well, that was actually something I wanted to ask about, because one of the places I lived at in Wisconsin, for a while they had this like Midwest emo, like old 90s math rock type deal. That was the scene. And I haven't lived here super long. I know that now we've got access to so many different things. There are so many eclectic influences, but is there any sort of overarching sound dynamic in this area that you guys have noticed?
In this area?
There was a lot of math rock.
There was a lot of math rock.
I'm your resident, been in a lot of math rock bands around here. When I first moved here, 2004, I wasn't really on my radar because it wasn't what I was looking at. But when I came back in 2013, there was Luckily I'm the Hunter. They were probably the most math rocky two-piece.
I am so that's a loss I feel every day.
Joel and Will, and then from Luckily there was If Then, which I played bass for, and If Then they were like a little math rocky kind of dream pop type band.
Okay,
and then YNICORNS has always been kind of post-rocky, maybe some math rocky.
We don't really do
not a whole lot of like
so much because we don't do
a lot of math.
We don't do any time signature changes really. We're only now.
Only now.
I'm gonna say,
but
it's
we're
I wouldn't say when I joined
fun.
Faux Fox.
Faux Fox is definitely
they were very
mathy.
mathy,
Yeah.
and that spawned out of Michael's bands, Pioneers of Pioneers, and Save Our Ships. They're very math rocky and indie rock type stuff. A lot of finger tapping going on. Faux Fox not so much, but there are a lot of weird time signatures and weird mathy parts, numbers parts, what we used to call it. But as an overall genre, there's not a lot of it here now.
No, and that's the thing. Like, I'm working to bring that band Medians from Tallahassee. I believe Tallahassee. Don't quote me on that. But there's a band called Medians that I found through a standards playlist that is from Florida, and trying to work on getting them to come up maybe through Bughouse, because Handlebars booked on the night that they're nearby here. But they're super mathy, and they were like, "Are there any other like cool mathy bands we can like get on the bill?" And I was like, we're a little mathy.
Glistener's got some mathy stuff in their newer sound, or like
I mean, they tap a lot. I haven't tried to count it yet. Do they change signatures?
Oh my god, there's this one I think it's called like Scales, and it's
okay.
Yeah,
I
they played it live, and it was insane. And then also like their newest song that they played live and everything was just, I don't know. It's a party every time.
It's Micah. Micah is a peck.
Like, yeah.
And Jeff are very mathy. They can be.
Tony's an insane, just, I mean, he's got a lot of, like, Mars Volta influence and everything. Like, that's a big thing that, like, I know he's very inspired by, and it shows. And also, like, got to give props to Travis Barker energy as well. He's got to, like, his drums it's insane. Every time I watch him, I sweat. Just like I get tired watching that man thrash. It's great.
You're listening to the Math Rock Music Hour. The time is 7:18, so this next song's going to be in 15:16.
Yeah.
Well, since we're already talking about drums a little bit, I know we focused a lot on guitar, synths, but so were you just programming the drums?
Yeah, the last record is entirely virtual drums.
Okay.
So it's a combination of native instruments, studio drummer, and a lot of extremely nuanced, like, dragging every drum hit a little bit off time. Like a mix of, like, using, like, quantization, like randomization through Pro Tools, and that's randomizing both, like, the timing of the drums and the, like, velocity of the drums, and then going back and, like, manually adjusting that on top of that, because, like, it has the triggering on the drums in that software, it, like, varies the actual, like, sample it triggers based on different velocity ranges. So in order to make it actually sound like as close to a human as I could in Pro Tools, because again, I didn't at the time think that I was going to ever play these with real people, so I was just writing these songs for that. But yeah, so those are all virtual drums. And it's funny, like, the last time we practiced, we're working on learning this new song, and Alex was like, so this demo, because, like, I demoed the song here, and you were like, is this like the version? Is this like the final recording? I was like, no, again, we are recording the next record with all of us actually playing our instruments. I don't want to do that anymore. It's
I was like, I could go nuts.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm very happy that I don't think the last record sounds a whole lot like computer drums, except for the ones that are supposed to sound like computer drums. But I'm far more excited to have human drums on things moving forward. I was gonna say, like, I mean, like, with any of the songs, like, none of, like, the only parts that might hold up on their own are maybe drums, and maybe bass when Sean's, like, doing his thing. Because, like, after the last show we played, I went up to some friends of mine who came for the first time, and they asked me, they were like, okay, so between you and the other guitars, which one of you guys is lead and which one of you is rhythm? And I was like, neither of us are doing either of those things. We're both kind of doing both of them at the same time, because we don't solo, and we also don't play a lot of chords. We just both kind of play notes, and it's a lot of counterpoint, and it's a lot of, like, shifting harmonization that's like an experiment. And like really every song is ensemble driven. There is no. I'm thinking a lot about writing more like memorable melody a lot right now, but even in doing that is spread across every instrument that's playing. It's like no instrument. Like we would suck if like one of us tried to play a solo show. It would be a nightmare. It would be very boring. So there's like that, and then like in regards to how the drum parts are, I don't have a whole lot of reference points on drums because I'm not a drummer, but I think you and I, Alex, both share an appreciation for Nate Smith and Lewis Cole, who
Absolutely.
like Nate Smith, like all my favorite parts of his are him basically with just a snare, a kick, and a hi-hat, and
There's
that's
a reason why
basically it.
There's a reason why Thundercat made a song called "I Love Lewis Cole."
Yeah, and like Lewis
So-
Cole, I mean, like the dude's a genius, and he again plays with such limited components to a set to make an interesting part, and it's by a combination of restraint and creativity within like a very limited sandbox that something interesting happens, and that's like what I think all of our guitar parts are. You know, oftentimes like we won't play more than like 5 notes in a song.
Yeah.
Maybe less. I mean, like.
Maybe the whole show.
Maybe the whole show. I mean, like, we kept trying to find a song where we were in a different key, and it's only in the new ones where I started putting a capo on the 3rd fret instead of just playing an open. We also played in weird tuning that I know is annoying, but we just don't play a lot of notes. It's just kind of like the way we arrange them and the rhythm we put them to that hopefully makes it interesting to listen to. But yeah. It's all ensemble driven, and that I think is across the board.
I'm definitely not playing any kind of mega kit. Like
Nope.
it's a tiny little.
You strip down.
Yeah.
Is Seish an exception to that? Because I mean, that's a bit more rhythmic for me.
That one has a lot more happening in it for everybody, I think. And that was me. Like that song, I talked about this in an interview a long time ago. That song started with me trying to write a faux foxy song. But it quickly diverged from that once it started getting writing, I think. But yeah, it has a lot of chords, and it has like 5 sections to it that are all kind of distinct. But I don't know, I feel like a lot of the newer stuff that I wrote and demoed, YNICORNS and the new song, I mean, are really like the ultimate exploration of a lot of the Midwest emo-y, like noodly parts that I like so much. But they're also, like, especially Surface Tension is like an opportunity where everyone's going to get to explore, hopefully, really evolving parts that I sort of like sketched out. Because up until now we've been a little beholden to play them like the record, but this isn't on a record yet. We haven't recorded this for a record yet. So, you've already introduced new ideas to that. I'm really excited to hear what you do with it. And Nick, like, you get, again, a complete blank slate because I don't write synth parts. And, the bass part, like all of them, bass plays a lot of lead, essentially, in the songs because, like, the guitars are definitely not playing lead most of the time. The bass has to carry most of that weight. But Sean has been really remarkably good at taking songs where the bass is the lead and retaining the essence of what has to be there, and then infusing a lot of his own like jazz influenced and just like a lot of his own take on the parts, which is good because I'm not much of a bass player. So
well, I know already went over your musical background, some of the other bands. You've been doing this quite a while. Sean, obviously not being here, he can't speak for himself, but what sort of bands has he been in? What are his influences as far as you know?
Sean's been playing music forever.
He has.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing jazz stuff forever, it seems like, too.
He did punk stuff in Pensacola.
I was gonna say
he's done a lot of synth stuff, as I understand it.
He does a lot. He does a harsh noise project, the Possibility Wave.
Recording.
Yeah.
He was also in Precubed, and we played with
He was in
Precubed at the
Precubed.
we played with Precubed at the Vinyl with Grave Chorus and Ego Death, which is an awesome night too.
Great
he
show.
also toured with Colonel Bruce for a while.
Colonel Bruce.
Okay.
Just so he's played a lot of blues music and stuff, I believe. But yeah, I mean, Sean is the depths of his musical experience are
Sean is also the only other person who appreciates Steve Reich as much as I do, I think. I have a record of his. He left here last time we hung out. It's been like 6 months now.
Okay.
But, it's fun.
Sean's another one of those people that knows so much about music that I usually feel a little lost when
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
talking
me
about. Yeah. He's got a lot of depth there.
He does.
I love that I can talk to him about Brian Eno.
How did he? What I mean, he was filling in, but I mean, did he express interest in what we?
No,
were
I was terrified to
playing?
ask him to join.
Yeah,
I like Sean has just been, he's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's one of the most talented people I've ever met, and so
Also, you guys had like one of the first people you ever met. when
yeah,
you
I
came
met Sean
here.
like the first week I moved here, first or second week. But I was just always too intimidated to ask him to join the band because I was like, I don't know, do you want to come play these dumb songs I wrote? And also, I mean, Sean has a life. He has a family. He has a demanding career. So I've always felt very like privileged and gifted that anybody is playing these songs that I originally wrote for just me, and then everybody else joined. And I've always felt really indebted to anybody who's playing in the band, and I always feel really bad when I ask them like, can we have to have a couple rehearsals? Do you guys have time? But like and Sean is no exception to that. So yeah, Sean never. I don't remember Sean super specifically expressing interest in like I would like to join your band, but it was like I think that you were on a trip and I was like, Sean is like the only other bassist I really know, and also especially the only other bassist I know who could learn the songs this quickly, and if he can't learn them, he could improv it and do fine. So like,
he definitely like dabbled in that space.
oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Sean and I played a show together in like 2021 at Emerald Republic where Sean did like weird
So it
keyboard
was-
noise music, and I did
kind of
improv.
apparent he would at least appreciate some
Yeah.
elements of it. Yeah,
I always knew he enjoyed weird music. I just never thought that anything I wrote would be cool enough. I don't know. So, but no, he was wildly like receptive to the idea, which was awesome.
he's playing house gigs still too. Not
Yeah, he
on
does
top of
brunches
his
all
career.
around town.
Well, yeah, well, and he's playing Radio Live every Thursday.
Radio Live?
Is it every Thursday? Radio
So,
Live
yeah.
is the jazz thing that WWF puts on, I think, right?
Yeah,
Um,
downtown.
Billy is leading that band this year. Billy Howe from IHMC.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
Yeah.
he played music.
He plays very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays kind of, I don't know, I butcher. It seems like he can play just about anything from my perspective, but I don't know what he plays exactly.
This is why
Jazz.
this is why I've always had so much anxiety about asking anyone to play with me in particular, because I can't jam and I don't know how to play guitar. So,
See,
Well, the
feel-
fact that you can't jam, I think, is the reason that someone like Sean would want to be in a band with you.
I feel like the intimidation thing though too, because like I'm kind of like new to the scene. I kind of just started playing music live last year, like in February 25th actually. It was and everybody like and like my other project has been extremely welcoming to me, and and everybody in the scene and everything as well. And I have to say, like the network and the community that Pensacola has to offer is honestly like it's been very friendly to me, and to meet all these like amazing other people as well, and play like at the Handlebar, which has been an extremely fun experience as well. And it's been intimidating. I was terrified as shit the first time I was rehearsing with Doug, because I was like, oh, I really like the music. Oh, I hope I managed to get this in time, and it was. It did feel like I was cramming, and I was really afraid that I was gonna like mess it up, but it was it was really fun. I was like, okay, so and I remember for the longest time I was like, oh, if you need me for another show or whatever. I remember it was our first show, like it was December 8th with Pagu TV, and I was like, oh, well, if you ever need me to play another show, again and everything like that, just let me know. He was like, oh, you're the drummer now, and I was like, okay, like it's basically kind of like that. I was like, all right, cool, and so
That's funny.
It's been bringing me out of my like shell a little bit, and it's been very fun to be a part of the I guess a part of the scene now. It's been
Well, I think, speaking of Sean and speaking of your first experience with Sean, I mean, I think Sean is a great example of the musical community here in that sense.
Absolutely.
Like, especially for me, like feeling like I don't like. I mean, the fact like when you asked me to play a show, I was like, I can't guarantee this will go well. Like I've never done this before. And I mean the fact that like I've heard so many nice things from people, and I'm just like genuinely not. I don't have a deep well of musical knowledge. I just like to do it, and the fact that you like to do it is enough for the people here to support what you're doing. And I think there's, you know, and Sean included. I mean, Sean, I used to have a piano in our office, and Sean and I worked together, and he would like, stop and like compliment things, and I'm just like tinkering. But I think just Sean is in my mind a great example of like what the Pensacola music community is as a whole, or at least in my experience, just incredibly welcoming, like very deep in its own way, but not in a way that it would look down on you for any reason.
It's not pretentious.
Exactly.
It's very unpretentious. It's very welcoming. I mean, like I felt like such an outsider when I moved here, and was immediately welcomed in by everybody. Like I sucked back then, so it was really kind of
And I said the jam band thing earlier, and I mean, I imagine even if you were in a jam band, people are super down to like.
We don't have a lot of those here.
No, but if we did, I think no one would be like sour about it. They
probably not. And that's the thing. It's like they'd probably be full. It would probably be full of very chill people. Who are undeniably like wonderful to be around, just because that seems to be who's in this community.
I still think it's funny because whenever I was like first playing them, I only knew Sean because like we followed each other on Instagram and like, you know, would like each other's stories of music that we'd share and stuff like that. But I didn't really know about like what Sean did until like I was starting to play with them. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, you know. But like, you know, it was just like learning that on the go. But it just kind of goes to show though, like even without me knowing that and just being two musicians coming together, you know, two musicians coming together in this project as well, and you know, just the respect that I've been treated with and everything throughout that, and it's remarkable, and it's been like that for, you know, everybody in this project. So.
I know. So you were mentioning the new songs that you're working on. You have this upcoming show. Where are the new songs at? It sounds like one of them is finished.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting thing. We've been exploring how to write together for the last 5 months, and that sounds like it's been a very active thing. But mostly we haven't been doing a whole lot of it because it's been hard to. When like I mentioned, like we don't have a regular practice night. You know, we all have very bizarre schedules for a variety of reasons, and so. We're figuring that out still. Right now, the new song we are learning is one that I still wrote a skeleton of everything, and demoed it by just recording it all in Pro Tools here, and then tabbed it out using the weird like spreadsheet system, so everyone can like learn parts and then evolve parts. Because we're hoping to record a record with Starland sometime end of the year, early next year, when hopefully we'll have enough new songs. We're jamming out a new one that's like the first, I would say, riff-based song we've ever done. And Alex and I messed around with that last time. And that one, I don't know how to get through that one yet. And then there's another one that has almost nothing, but I have a lot of ideas for that I'm probably going to try and demo / sort of like compose and arrange here and then bring to everybody else to take and run with. And I think that like... For now, that's seeming to maybe make the most sense because I can demo stuff again at night after my kids go to bed and like get skeletons together, get tabs together, and then like everybody knows this is not the final version. This is not the album version. This is the version for us to use to learn the song and to rehearse with, because we also have like this massive collection of like the song minus my part, the song minus Destin's part, the song minus Alex's part that we can use to independently practice, because practices are sometimes so hard to put together. So we can all do independent practice, which still allows room for you to like play with your own part within that context, because you have everyone else's sort of like reference part to work with. And as long as we all can kind of play within that space, the songs will work once we get together. So we have like 3 like seeds we have one that we're learning to debut in June, 2 seeds of ideas that are being developed, and I'd love for us to get in the next 6 months another 3 songs, so develop all these to completion and get 3 more from there and have like 6 songs, and then go into the studio, record them as a band. And then I want to get Destin, like in the last album we pulled a couple of like old ambient tracks that I had recorded improv wise in like 2022 that is from this like large ambient album I finished and was like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I put it away, never released it. But 2 of those wound up on the last record. I want to get Destin to just run with piano for interstitials instead of like pulling from this ambient collection, because Destin is a remarkably good pianist, despite his modesty about that. And I think that like either using just straight up piano tracks recorded improv style, or if Destin starts like putting more like pre-composed ideas together, or if those become like the foundation for like a ambient-ish sort of like thing, I think there's like opportunity to mix that into in the way that ambient pieces were mixed into the last record of full band music. But that's kind of like the status of new things is, I would say, very early on, early stages right now. But I'm trying my hardest to like listen to like the voice memos of stuff we've recorded just in the room during practice and little snippets, because that always inspires me to like really sit down and commit a couple of nights to like exploring ideas in Pro Tools. And the last record is full of ideas that took like over the course of 4 years to develop, and I really want this one to come together in the course of 1 year or less, so we can actually get new music out and new music to play live. Because I think I am certainly bored of playing the same 5 songs. I like playing them, but I want new songs. I want to do something different. I'm sure everybody else has sentiments that are similar at the very least. But yeah, so you know, it's mostly just like we're really feeling out on this record. How can we write together, because it's hard timing wise. And also we all come from different places musically, and I want those influences to start to appear more in the songs, but also staying true to the principles of what makes a unicorn song, which evolve, but you know, have some sort of basis that is grounded a little bit in my own weird way of writing music. But I think like I'm learning how to let go of the reins of that and like incorporate more ideas, hopefully. That's my goal personally, and just see where that goes, because I think the band will be stronger for the more voices that are putting into it than not.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for taking some time to talk with me. Any
cool
closing thoughts? Anyone you want to shout out? I know you mentioned recording with Starlin.
Yeah, definitely shout out Starlin, shout out Sean, shout out Fofox, shout out Blight, shout out is the new name out yet? Is it released?
We're waiting for when we play live again to announce the new name.
Shout out, insert band name here in the meantime.
We're gonna insert that band name there, I promise.
Oh my god, what a story.
Super deep.
Yeah. But the socials insert.bnh on Instagram.
Oh yeah, shout out us at unicorns.wave. Unicorns is how I currently say it. You can say it however your heart desires, but it's spelled YNICORNS.WAV on Instagram. And the website is wildly under-updated, so unicorns.com exists, but it is not particularly representative.
Under-updated. That's a good one.
Under-updated.
Under-updated.
I don't know. You guys got shout-outs?
To you. Thank you.
We're gonna be selling merch at
we do have merch coming
next show and everything, and I think that it came out really, really cool.
Thanks.
So yeah, cool. No, I love it.
Sweet. I'm stoked to make. I think we should have shirts by then. We have pins. We got stickers. We have lots of inclusivity stickers, which all proceeds of anything pride or inclusivity oriented will go to Strive Pensacola. Is everyone cool with that?
I'm absolutely cool
Sick.
with that.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Doug's in charge of me.
Cool. If you need Destin, just hit me up.
I was saying thank you to him, but also thank you to you. But,
cool. Nick, thoughts?
I got nothing. Just
Nick is a beautiful blank slate.
Lots of music coming out.
Big things coming soon.
Big things coming from my world, I guess. I mean,
yeah.
We got unicorn stuff, some other potentials.
Yeah.
Starting up again or revisiting new things.
Exciting.
I'm not talking about any of it because I don't want to shoot
no
myself in the
jinxing.
foot.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Super appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.